Now that we've recorded our samples, let's go inside of Live and see what we can do with them. All right, I've got my sample loaded here on this track called Mike, and I put the video track up here just so I could see what I was doing. So I'm just going to line them up so that they're in sync. I'm not really using the video track for anything other than just reference, so I can remember what it was I was recording. And you can see I'm trying to line this up. It's not letting me get it exactly right. So I'm going to turn off snap to grid because we're not going to need it in this. Nothing's quantized to the grid. And there we go. That's nice. So right now playback is quantized. So I'm going to set this to none so that I can just click and see what's going on. And this is nice because I can drag through nice and quickly to see what's going on. So the first thing we can do is get some percussive sounds and build a bit of a drum rack with that. And we've got some right in the beginning here. So we've got a few hits. I'm just going to zero in on these real tight till about there. Hit Command E to break those apart. And we'll find this other one here. And maybe we'll get the whole thing down to about there. Command E again to slice. And let's see what's going on here. I'll slice it here. So I want to rename these. So I'm going to write Kayak 1. This will be Kayak 2. I'm just tabbing to go between these. Kayak 3. And if I then select my clip and press Command J, Live makes a whole new audio file of that, which will make this much easier to work with inside a drum rack. So I'm going into our browser, finding our drum rack, and dragging it onto this MIDI track. Then I can just drag these little clips here right onto my drum rack. So we'll get these 3 going down here. And now these sounds are playable on our drum rack. I know I had a chain somewhere, so I'm going to try to find a chain sound. That looks like a nice one. So again, I'm just going to zoom in on this and isolate that bit of the chain, maybe to about here, and do Command E, rename this to chain, and Command J to make it into a new audio file, and then drag this onto our drum rack. So I've got these all inside of a drum rack, and you can continue and get as many sounds as you want. I want to use these inside drum samplers. So if I just right click here, I can turn these all into the new drum sampler device. And that gives me access to a few new parameters that we might want to use for our drum rack. So we got our kayak sound here. I'll choose this one, and I'm going to put some stretch on it. And I'm going to use the modulation on velocity. Let's try FX2, and we'll crank it. So now depending on how hard I hit my pad, I get these different kind of stretch sounds. And for this one, I might increase our decay a little bit. So a very light sound gets that kind of metallic noise, and a harder one, a little less stretch. So it's kind of cool because that one kayak sound now has this cool effect on it. This sine sound is cool. Maybe I'll transpose it down a little. And maybe I'll even just duplicate this. If I hold down the Option key and just drag this to new pad, I've got a copy of that. So I can have this at its regular pitch too. Maybe on this one, we'll try a different effect. I'll go for the 8-bit sound. That's kind of cool. It gives it almost like a snare type sound. We got a nice little bloop of a rock going in the water there, and drop that over here. And I can convert this to a drum sampler as well. And let's try a different effect, maybe the FM, frequency modulation. For this one, I'm going to use MPE slide to manipulate FX2. So this will be this knob right here, and I'm just going to crank that all the way up, put it somewhere in the middle. So depending on where I place my finger on the pad, I get a different type of tone to this splash sound. It's a cool sound on its own, so I'll just make another copy of that by option dragging it to a new pad. And I'll just turn these effects all the way down. And maybe let's try pitching it down a little. Cool, so now I've got this interesting kind of percussive drum rack that I can use for my music. I've got this little chain sound here, and I want to see if I can turn that into a melodic instrument, because it does have a little bit of a tone to it, so I wonder if we can get something playable on our keyboard with that. So I'm going to put sampler on a new track here, and drag this right inside our sampler, and play that on C. We get our normal pitch. Now when I play it down a lower octave, kind of getting a pitch here. Let's see if I can loop this and find an actual note we can use. Okay, so I'm playing a C and it's reading an F, so let me just change this down to an F. And now we've got a C, and I'm gonna just detune this a little bit. I think it's about 20 something. So now we've got this playable instrument now. It's a little bit loud and piercing, but I wonder if I use some of our parameters here, like the attack and the filter. I'll add some release. It's a strange sound, but that's kind of what we're going for, right? So maybe if I go into our audio effects and bring in, let's say, a little delay, that might give it some extra, a little extra something. But lots of weird noise and texture to that, so it's kind of fun. All right, so right here I've got some nice sound of the water hitting the shore. I'm going to cut out some of that wind noise though. So you might be getting some wind sounds in some of your samples and you might not want it. A lot of times that stuff is residing in the very low end, your microphone rumble and stuff. So I find if I put a high pass filter on this stuff, I can get rid of a lot of the wind and still get the kind of environmental sounds that I'm looking for. All right, and that should be enough for what we're doing here. I'm going to right click and select bounce to new track. So this is going to take this little selection here and just make it a new audio track and process this signal on it. So check this out. It's one of my favorite new features, bounce to new track. It took that little part here and made it on a new track. Notice there are no audio effects here. Notice also it has been deactivated up here and the effect is still there. So if I don't want this high pass filter on everything, now I can turn it off and I've got the effect of it right here, all cleaned up. It's got rid of some of that wind rumble. Something I love to do with my synth sounds is to give it a sense of atmosphere. And I'm going to use this water sound with these cassette tape synths that I've made. Now, this is the pad I've got loaded up. That's a synth recorded to cassette tape. I'm going to right click to group this so I have an instrument rack. And then I'm going to show our chains. And we've got our instrument rack here with the cassette tapes. And I'm just going to drag this water sample that we made and drop it here onto a new chain. And that puts it inside a sampler. And we can turn on the loop here. And now when I play our cassette tape sound, we're also going to hear the water sounds. Isn't that cool? So now it sounds like this cassette tape synth was at the beach. And there's a couple things we can do. Maybe we'll turn up the release a little bit on this so it doesn't fade out and fade in so abruptly. Maybe we'll let it even have a little more release. And now we've got a pretty cool water-drenched, oceanside cassette tape synthesizer here. And you can do that with any sound you want. Just layer them in like that. Okay, I've got a little clip here of me walking around in the water, making water sounds. I think I'm going to use this as well. So I don't know, we'll highlight about that much here. And I'm going to turn on this high-pass filter to clean up some of the wind sounds out of here. And we've got mostly the water. It's pretty amazing how nice that cleans things up. Still there a little bit, but that's okay. We'll hit Command-J to make it into a new audio clip. I'm going to once again bounce this to a new track so we apply that filtering to this sample. Now I'm going to use the granulator, which is Live's granular synthesizer. And it takes our sample and chops it into little grains and loops those really fast and spreads out where it's looping and creates these cool granular sounds. I'm just going to drop it right here. And right now we're just looping this little area, but we can change the grain size to get smaller loops. So you've just got sort of like a tone like that, or then we can put on scan, which will have it move throughout the sample. With some cool sounds. And again, you start putting some effects on here, maybe some reverb. Let's pick something interesting. I've got a mega reverb. Let's see what that sounds like. It sounds like a mega reverb. So now this has become almost like a white noise type of thing. And I'm sure we could combine this with our auto filter. Well, that sounds like the ocean. It's pretty wild. We could use this to make fun white noise risers. So maybe I'll just select all of these and then hit Command-J to put them inside an instrument rack. And I'll just map the filter frequency to a knob here. And that might be like all we really need, right? Just have a, we'll call it like white noise. So now I can just play the key and turn the control to make these kind of like white noise rising and falling type sounds. I think it might be fun to also have control over the position here, so we'll map that too. So I'll just name this sample position. So we can get different kinds of white noise risers, depending on where our sample is. Cool. And thank you to Crazy Mega Reverb for that help and the auto filter. All right, and we're going to do one more thing. I've got another video here. This was the wedding proposal that we stumbled upon here. This couple was setting up, the family was setting up so this couple could have a nice romantic wedding proposal. There's not a ton of sound other than some cheering, but you can make playable instruments out of just about any sound. And I've made a little rack here that will help us do that. I call this the Harmonic Series Sample Enhancer. And it's just a EQ8 where we boost frequencies, pitches really, from C and the harmonic series up through like some of the higher octaves and the fifth as well. And it allows us to then hear some tones within the sound. So like right here is kind of cool with like all this clapping. And you can hear it with this C2, I'm getting a tone. Also gonna allow that wind noise. I can bring in other tones to help emphasize the pitchiness of this. And I made some presets too that you can use if you want to just have some useful ones that kind of work already. I think what I'll choose is the octave and the fifth here. See, you hear like that tone in there. I'm going to bring the fifths down a little bit. Maybe even some of these higher octaves. And even if I'm not happy with all that wind noise, I can raise this low cut filter here. And then we build up the C's a little. So I think it might be interesting where all the clapping is happening. Let's see. I'm going to right click and I'm going to bounce this to new track so that these effects are processed. And the results will vary based on how you use this device here. But now we've got our video bounce, and we're going to create a new MIDI track and put live sampler on there. Simpler, sampler, whatever you like, really. Maybe we'll do simpler since we worked in sampler already. And I'm going to drop this right onto that sampler. And live assumes that the pitch of this sample is at middle C, the original pitch. So when I play middle C, it plays it back at the original pitch. If I play it lower, we get lower pitches. So since we set that up already, we've kind of done the work where now this sample will have some tune to it. I'm just holding down 3 notes. It's quiet yet, but we want to find the right spot. So let's go to this louder part with the clapping and all that and see what that sounds like. And now we've got this pretty cool instrument here made with the cheering of an engagement. Nice, and there's no effects on that yet either. So once we start putting effects on it, we can have some cool stuff happen. A little bit of a delay, maybe. Just something small. Kind of nice. You know, your imagination is your only limitation. So this harmonic series sample enhancer is great if you want to just turn any sound into a playable instrument. I'll make it available for you to download so that you can use it on your own samples. And yeah, now we've got a bunch of different instruments we can use. So we've got this one we just made, this playable pad here. It's pretty interesting. We've got the drum rack. And you can kind of keep going wild, like repitching and affecting all these drum samples as much as you want. We've got the sampler instrument with the chain. Interesting kind of cinematic sound. We've got the cassette tape that we've turned into an Oceanside cassette tape. And again, you can do this with any sound you want. Pianos or keyboards, synthesizers. And we've also got our white noise creator. This is just the beginning of what you can do with your samples. Be experimental, have fun, and see what kind of sound you can come up with, and use this as your palette for your music making.